Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, or whatever time it is that you're listening to this. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my session today on what I wish I'd known about English prior to training to be an English teacher. My name is Danielle Moon, and I'm the head of English, or head of the English faculty at the Grangefield Academy. And I'm just going to talk you through today sort of my background and things that I wish I'd known prior, and any useful tips or advice that I could give you, either as a trainee teacher, an NQT, an RQT, or a non-subject specialist. So just to start off, I've decided to talk you through my background just so you understand the journey I've been on and sort of the challenges that I've faced. So when I first arrived in a school, I arrived at Dyke House many years ago as a cover assistant or teacher. So that was obviously different challenges that I was facing then to what I face now as the head of English, but it's definitely one of the most valuable things I did in my career, because I got used to the systems of the school. I got to learn the kids. I got to learn how to manage children. So as a sort of a young professional, it was a great way to start off. I understand that that can be daunting sometimes when, say, if this is your first time of ever being in a school post university, that it can be quite daunting. So for me, I guess I was eased in. After that, I became an unqualified teacher of English for a year, and that was still at Dyke House. So I've always worked within Northern Education Trust. It's always what I've known. And I did that for a year, and then I completed my teacher training year. Now, what's a little bit different about my background is that my training year I didn't actually complete in English. So I completed it in religious studies. So that must sound a bit strange now, because as part of Northern Education Trust's model, we don't necessarily study RE as an independent subject, and it's part of life now. Not part of life as in the same, but part of life, the subject. So so that sounds a bit different, but that was where Northern Education Trust were at that point when I trained. So then in my NQT year, I moved over from Dyke House to the Grangefield Academy as an NQT, and I retrained and became part of their English department. And I've never looked back. It's been an amazing journey, a challenging one. So obviously in my NQT year, I didn't have the benefit of sort of the time that you get as a trainee, or the dedication of staff, I guess, because as a trainee, you get given quite a lot in terms of time, in terms of mentoring. And don't get me wrong, I was 100% supported, but to the limitations of an NQT timetable. So that was quite challenging. So I'm going to talk to you today about a couple of the things that I did to make sure that I was fully qualified in English by the end of my NQT year. After that, I became an aspiring leader, and I led on year 10 progress in the English department. So for me, this was an amazing stepping stone, because I got to understand the systems and the data side of things more, and it was a bit of a step into becoming head of English, or acting head of English. So I was acting head of English temporarily, and then I'm now the head of the English faculty at Grangefield. So one of the biggest things that I learned, probably a bit too late, was that Rome wasn't built in a day. So I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but I remember starting at Grangefield and observing some absolutely outstanding and experienced staff, who I just wanted to mirror and be exactly like. So what I did initially do is put a lot of pressure on myself to sort of be better. And I think that didn't help. So at the beginning of my NQT year, I remember just getting this overwhelming feeling, because I just wanted to learn the ins and outs of Romeo and Juliet, A Christmas Carol, at the same time as teaching A Midsummer Night's Dream at Key Stage 3 and all of the anthology poems. And I really did overwhelm myself. So probably halfway through the year was when I realised that Rome wasn't built in a day. So what I did learn is that, and what I would always keep in the back of your mind is that the staff that you're observing and the good practice that you see every day, it will have taken years of developing that understanding and attending lots of CPD and doing all of these little things that have ensured that these teachers know exactly what they're doing to get the students the grades that they deserve. So so if you're feeling like that at the moment, I would just say take a step back, and I would take it step by step. So I would think about what your priorities are for this half term. Think about what texts you are teaching to your children, or what exams, if it's language exams, and learn those first and do it in baby steps. So what I did, and I'll admit that I'm a little bit of a geek, is I created folders. So, and it's something that I always show to my trainees or NQTs, or anyone who joins the department. So I remember feeling a bit overwhelmed with Shakespeare, so I created a folder with every scene, and every time I taught the scene, I'd annotate it the night before and then deliver it the next day. And even as the students were annotating, I'd think of another sort of interpretation, I'd be noting it down. And then I still to this day have that folder to refer back to. So it just built my confidence knowing that I'd prepared the day before, I'd annotated the extracts, I'd really thought about it, I googled anything that I didn't understand. Spark Notes was my best friend at that point, translating Shakespeare's Old English into English that I could understand and then interpret for our students. So definitely something that I benefited from by doing that. And it is something, again, because I can just reuse it. And one of the moments that I did realise and was so grateful to have that was returning to school post lockdown. So obviously having 6 months away from the education system, and even though we were working from home and delivering content from home to the best of our ability, it's not the same as standing in front of a class of 30 students. So there's been times over the past couple of weeks since coming back to school where I've had a quick look through my notes just to refresh my memory, in the same way that we do retrieval practice with our students. So I would just say building that knowledge is key and taking it step by step. So now I don't just have my Shakespeare folder, I have my Dickens folder, I have my annotated poems, and all of that ready for whenever I need it and to show to anybody who would also benefit from that. So I hope that might be useful to some of you listening today. Okay, so now we're up to probably the most valuable part of this session. So I've created a list of the best things I ever did over the course of my career to get my teaching practice to be the way it is today. So the first thing I would recommend is that you should attend as many CPD opportunities as possible. This course in particular that you are enrolled on, being delivered by NET this year, is new. And is something that I would have found so useful in my early years of my career, because it is bespoke to the schemes that we deliver as a trust. So it's just amazing, really, because you're going to be guided through step by step on how to deliver this content and deliver the skills, and in a way that the trust expects. So definitely just take this opportunity. The next would be taking opportunities from the exam board. So AQA do offer sessions. You might have heard about this, you might have not. But if you haven't, definitely go and ask your head of department if there are any that you can attend. There are some coming up in November, so definitely if they haven't, just see if you can get involved with that. I do always believe that looking at it from an AQA perspective is really valuable, because you get to see it from the end goal, so you can see why your department or your head of department directs you to do things in a certain way, or the trust do, because there's method behind the madness. So you will see the reason why you've been asked to structure a paragraph in a certain way or teach that way. So I just think it's really good to hear it from, as they say, the horse's mouth, because then it sort of solidifies your understanding of why you are doing what you are doing each day. So then the next thing that I would recommend at any sort of stage in your career is to observe. So I'm lucky as a head of department because I get to go and observe my staff all of the time. And there are reasons why I go and observe my department because I'm accountable, but I also learn every day, every time. So an example of this would be I've put on the bottom of this PowerPoint there a quotation from Romeo and Juliet. Or serpent heart hid with a flowering face. And I just think that one always springs to mind because I look at that quotation in depth with my classes, but then other members of the department look at a different quotation which has the same or similar analysis. So I just think not just observing a member of staff, observing everybody. So go and get yourself in as many lessons as you can, and observe excellent practice, for several reasons, really. One is to improve your teaching practice or observe how content is delivered, because we do face challenging content to deliver as English practitioners. So looking at how you can deliver Shakespeare to a low ability class, things like that, so valuable for differentiation, but also for your subject knowledge. So referring back to my geeky folder, I used to go and observe even enrichment time and then make notes and go and add it, and then that would be improving my practice the next time I delivered that content. So just getting involved as much as you possibly can with that. So leading on from the last slide, observing year 11 I've put as a separate point, because again, observing that particular year group when you might not necessarily have a year 11 class on your timetable this year, is just so beneficial in seeing what the end goal looks like and where we need our students to be, particularly if you're teaching a year 10 class, because you're just that little step behind. So definitely get yourself into as much year 11 sort of interventions, even enrichment, just observing good practice at that point, because you really will learn a lot from that. Something that I did in my NQT year, which I don't think many people know you can do this, but I became an AQA examiner. So I was an examiner for language paper 1. I did this because my whole department were examiners. So I just felt like I just wanted to get involved, understand the specifications. So I was a language paper 1 examiner, and I was able to do this if I had a reference from 2 separate members of senior leadership. So if you are in your NQT year this year and it's something that you are interested in, I would definitely recommend, if that's what you would like to do. Again, the success of our department runs on the fact that we've all been exam markers on the majority and exam marked for all the different papers. So it's widened our knowledge of what the responses need to look like. Also, prior to receiving your papers, they are online, but you get really, really good CPD, and they also send you materials that you can then use sort of in your lessons after that. So you get given model responses that you can pull apart and see why they're being given that certain mark, and just understanding, picking apart the fundamentals of those questions that the children are being examined on. So definitely one of the best things that I did there. And again, I just wanted to finish off on this with just making notes. What I like to call my literature Bibles, my geeky folders that I keep referring to, and they really have been essential for me to build confidence in my earlier years. And again, it's something that when you have a different class, so if you are used to teaching a middle ability class and then you get a higher ability, it's something that you can go back to and add to, and just builds on that understanding of literature over time. So just to finish off, I just would like to remind everyone that nobody knows everything. So we are all constantly learning, and no matter what point you are at in your career, whether you've been teaching for 20 years or 2, there's always something that you can learn. So just bear that in mind. Again, just take every opportunity to attend courses, observe other staff and learn, especially in your training year and in your NQT year. And just don't be afraid to say to your head of faculty or colleagues that you don't understand something. The likelihood of it is that they've probably asked that question or had that thought at one point themselves, And I made a bit of a joke here, but I think we would all agree that if your question's related to tissue, we've probably all asked that question at one point. So yeah, I just wanted to finish off with that. Thank you so much for listening to me today. I hope that it's been useful. And if anyone has any questions or would like any further advice, my email is at the bottom of this presentation. Thank you.